Let's help strangers to experience a happy rebirth. This evening's lesson is drawn from a sincere question on Reddit. The individual wrote, "Can a non-Buddhist be born in Sukhavati Pure Land if I pray for him, provided that he didn't know about the existence of it at all?" We're going to answer this, or strive to answer this, in three parts. For the first part, it is going to sound a bit persnickety. What's this prayer business, eh? You see, the problem with prayer is that infers that we are beseeching the mercies and the kindness of real or imagined celestial entities. What could be wrong with that? Well, an excellent answer to that question is found in the Christian New Testament of 1 Corinthians chapter 13, in which we learn that relying on devotion makes children of us all, whereas adults rely on love. But how does that work? Well, that's best illustrated with a calf. When a calf is newborn, it relies on its mama for two things. Number one, her udders for food. And number two, her horns for protection against predators for whom a calf would be easy pickings. And that's great. Due to the nature of the neurochemistry of a calf, it exhibits addiction-like symptoms towards its mother's milk, which means it is always by her side, which makes it easy not only to make sure the calf is fed, but to make sure the calf is protected. Great. Every mammal knows the circumstance of a child entering adolescence, and the entire chemistry of the child changes from the chemistry that supports petulant devotion to a parental figure to a chemistry that supports independence of a parental figure and instead horizontal love for all the other members of the herd or tribe or pack. In fact, it could be said that when someone only has enough room in their heart for one person or no people, that they are petulant. But when they are selfless and loving, then they are truly adult. Of course, that doesn't stop people. In every group of humans, well, I'm reminded of Sturgeon's Law, which tells us that 90% of everything blows, but not in the fun, tingly way. And so 90% of teachers are going to be stuck in patriarchy, stuck in yang, stuck in following the path of wicked Devadatta, stuck in being rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and even cruel. And these people perpetuate the idea that people must pray to real or imagined entities to benefit themselves and to benefit others, forcing them to forever be metaphysical children and not in the positive way. Fortunately, there will always be at least some people out there who are not horrible, who are not foolish, who are wise and loving and practice as well as teach the path of being flexible, loving, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. And these are the people who say, if we want to help others, then work with intention. So let's now turn to the second part of this evening's lesson, intention. We're going to begin with a passive technique. After generating some positive energy, some positive karma, one could silently and mentally recite, "May all lots or circumstances of all beings, living and dead, appearing yet void," this helps us to remember to, whether these circumstances are real or imagined, it helps us to remember to let go of them and not to be attached to them. But anyway, may all lots of all beings now be as fortunate as the Pure Land of lore depicted in Buddhist paintings. And above here we see one of those, a Buddhist painting depicting a Buddhist paradise or Pure Land or Vati, if you prefer Sanskrit. Now this is deliciously vague, and there is tremendous power in vagary. Ask the late Milton Erickson, arguably the king of hypnotherapists. He found the greatest power in deliberate and therapeutic vagary. And that is what the author has intended with these words here. So whether or not we believe in life after death, we are exercising our loving intention, which we are wired to have, by the way, thanks to a happy coincidence of evolution. So we rely upon our neurological wiring for empathy. And just as we ourselves want happy circumstances, circumstances that are safe, and circumstances that are fortunate, and circumstances that are profoundly conducive to spiritual practice, just as we want this for ourselves, we can empathize thanks to our mirror neurons and assume that other people would like favorable circumstances as well, whether those people are someone we can perceive with our physical eyes, someone we know as a abstraction, perhaps from the news, or perhaps from reasoning, or perhaps from imagination, whether these people are real or imagined, living or dead. It has been said by my Tibetan teachers that love generates positive energy. The very act of wishing for others to experience good fortune increases the presence of energy that can be fed into that wish that they experience good fortune, which is very efficient. It was also taught to me by my Tibetan teachers that the greater the number of people included in our wishes, the stronger the love that is accessed, the greater the merit that is generated. Merit is short for virtuous merit or good karma, whether we take that literally or figuratively. So for instance, and I'm going to use random numbers. If me wishing for a dead dog's auspicious rebirth generated some positive energy, then me wishing for the auspicious rebirth of all dogs would generate more positive energy. For me wishing for the auspicious rebirth of all beings, of all worlds, real or imagined, would generate much more positive energy. And for me to wish auspicious circumstances for all beings, living or dead, real or imagined, on this world and other worlds, would create even more positive energy. There's a term used salaciously by con men, and it's called casting a wider net. We can do something here with our wording, or something here has been done, just to make it as vague yet positive and as broad-reaching as possible. Hence, all circumstances of all beings. Now, one of the things we are taught in Buddhism is that although it is good to have survival instincts to keep us alive, it's bad when those survival instincts control us, when we are forever shoving and reaching and clinging. That tends to gum up the works of our life. As an antidote to that, the Buddha taught us various contemplations to help us to let go. These were refined by the South Indian Buddhist philosopher Nagarjuna, who talked about the two truths, the truths of mindfulness or perception, and the truth of meditation or release. So in other words, as we physically relax into our exhalation, whatever we perceived or imagined during our inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Could feel as if it was as non-graspable as the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although it could be tantalizing to the eye, is rather non-graspable to the hand. This is not something to be believed, but rather experienced through the crucible of mindfulness and meditation. Therefore, if we really want to help people, in addition to crafting a loving and far-reaching wish, it's important to empower that wish with mindfulness and meditation. Now, us humans, in fact, all complex life forms on this planet, have evolved to think symbolically. Looking way back through the mists of time, our distant ancestors first just perceived. And in time, they began to recollect past perceptions and anticipate or imagine future perceptions. And thus, we evolved to think symbolically. Therefore, figures of speech, such as metaphors and similes, can be remarkably helpful in our practice of wishing others well. For the more emotionally involved we are in our loving intentions, the more our emotion is engaged, the more our viscera is engaged, the more dynamic our intention becomes. So we use the simile, and the simile used in these three lines is as fortunate as a pure land of lore depicted in Buddhist paintings. Behind me, over my shoulder, you'll see a Buddhist painting mounted on a brocade. They call that a tanka. So we see a similar painting on the screen in front of us. We see Shakyamuni, also known as Gautama, also known as Siddhartha, and we see him depicted in a beautiful paradise. And it's got beautiful skies and beautiful hills and snow-capped mountains and rivers and streams and waterfalls and vegetation and even a beautiful elephant hanging out here and birds. So it's just depicted as a beautiful, lovely, fortunate, safe place. Let us not limit ourselves to a literal exploration of what a Pure Land is, but keep it metaphoric. The Catholics in America and the East Coast have a saying during middle school dances: leave room for the Holy Spirit. Metaphor, and that's referred to preventing kids from grinding their groins into each other. But we can do the same thing with our assumptions. We can take a break from our controlling tendencies, our rigid tendencies, and instead choose to be flexible and laid back. And by using flexible language, we create greater room for good fortune and happy accidents. Rather than saying, I want this person and this Pure Land at this time, which is very, very precise and very, very rigid and very, very controlling, just to keep it as vague and as possible and as positive as possible is the key. So we've talked about prayer. We've talked about it using a rather passive technique. Let us conclude with a rather active technique borrowed from Buddhist highest yoga tantra. And you'll see it uses very similar techniques, but we're going to turbocharge them. So here's how it works. One of the keys, one of the metaphoric philosopher's stone that transforms the worthless lead of mantra recitation, into the valuable gold of mantra meditation is twofold. Number one, during our inhalation, we guide our mind through by silently, mentally, and passively reciting an italicized line. During our exhalation, we physically relax while striving to verbally recite this 12-syllable mantra 4 times per breath. So let's take a deeper dive into this italicized bit. We're wishing that all circumstances of all beings now be as fortunate and as safe as the Pure Land or paradise or Vati of a real or imagined Buddha as depicted in Buddhist paintings. Once again, by casting a water net, by being as flexible as possible, we practice the opposite of rigidity and create a flexibility that makes positive energy and dynamic manifesting possible. If you are new to this mantra, give yourself a break. If you play with this mantra for, 5 minutes every 12 hours or so, then within 1 or 2 weeks, you'll feel comfortable with this. If right now you've just lost someone and you want to practice this on their behalf, that's fine. It's impossible to create any harm with this exercise. And if you're really clever, you'll practice both this active method and then you'll begin with the passive technique. Once we'd be fine, 3 times even better. Then you can play with this active technique and then conclude once again with the passive technique. And you'll find that if you are psychic, you will get that they have taken auspicious rebirth. If you are not psychic, that's fine. Whether or not you believe in psychic powers, whether or not psychic powers are real or imagined, that's fine. At the very least, you will be exercising your neural pathways that support love. If there is such a thing as life after death, then people will be able to perceive your love for them. You reaching out using whatever tools you have to help them. So whether these teachings are 100% literally correct or not, you're creating great benefit for oneself and for others. I do look forward to chanting and meditating with you this evening after approximately, that's an unfortunate, anyway, too late now. Let's see here. How do we fix that? Let's go over here real quick. And let's tug on this corner. And let's pull up this bit right here. Excellent. Well, I do look forward to chanting and meditating with you after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I've spent about 8 hours a day, just about every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each sect of Buddhism so that you would not have to. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. But just as if we were cooking a pancake, the night's practice is going to be defined by flipping and flopping between mantra meditation and then silent meditation back and forth, like the swinging pendulum of a grandfather clock. Therefore, I think it makes perfect sense to begin by chanting a bit that reminds us of the benevolent meaning of tonight's mantra. Together. With whom we invoke the Muni wise one, Maha greatly wise one, Muni, yea, of the Shakya, Soha, enlightenment for all. So what this means is we are invoking the iconography of the archetype that reminds us that we have evolved to master, no less practice, awareness and letting go, love and letting go, as well as bliss and letting go. Tonight, let us begin with bliss and letting go. This particular exercise is known in Tibet as Lama and is translated into English as calling the teacher as from afar. The figure at the bottom, the drawing of Padmasambhava, reminds us of our own enlightened potential to master the Buddha's path. This copulating couple overhead reminds us literally of pleasurable sensations we might experience on our crown in a minute or two, and figuratively reminds us of the teacher and the teachings. As I mentioned a few moments ago, during our inhalation, we silently, mentally, and passively recite this italicized bit. And during our exhalation, we physically relax as best we can while striving to chant this 12-syllable mantra 4 times per breath. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. 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 Having trained in bliss and letting go, we now turn our attention to awareness and letting go. Let us master awareness and letting go, beginning in 4 steps, beginning with this first one. This first one is going to be clunky, so please be patient with the process. During each and every time we notice our body inhaling, we could silently and mentally recite, perceiving this very turbulent play of mind. Now, this is not a contrivance. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, our sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the thoracic region of our spinal cord has evolved not to mind blank or to actively concentrate, but to simply perceive, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. So by silently and mentally reciting these 12 syllables during our inhalation, we are allowing the 3-pound supercomputer between our ears to actively cooperate with our autonomic nervous system rather than oppose it. Similarly, during our exhalation, or I should say when we notice our body exhaling, we could silently and mentally recite, relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature. So what I like to do right now is practice this for 16 rounds, assuming that a round is comprised of one inhalation followed by one exhalation. Now, I like to practice this 16 times, but I'm breathing faster than you because I'm doing all this talking. So please do not feel bad if in the time it takes me to practice this for 16 rounds, you only wind up practicing it for 8 rounds or maybe 12. Now, you might ask yourself, how is this guy, this oddly dressed fellow, going to count to 16 rounds on just 4 fingers and 1 thumb? Simple. During each inhalation, I advance the left thumb on to each finger's a set of creases and tips for a total of 16. You don't have to, but you're welcome to follow along with me. Please give yourself permission to have a learning curve. It might take you a week or two. That's fine. Oh, excuse me. Wow. Oy vey. Get him up. Excuse me. Oy vey. We proceed now to our outer set of preliminary practices. From a certain point of view, we could view others' stress as an opportunity or a mechanism by which we sow the seeds for greater compassion. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. Allow me to remind you that once you have grown comfortable with this mantra, during the mantra recitation, you may wish to gently rest your eyes on the one word, the one italicized word comprised exclusively of capital letters. You don't have to, but many people find it useful. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa Om Muni Muni ma mani esawa om, muni ma mani esawa om, muni ma mani esawa. Excuse me. Woof. Let us not ghoulishly view interdependence as karma's mechanism to punish us. Rather, let us view interdependence as the means by which our love can lighten others' loads. Similarly, let us not make the mistake of viewing death as this frightening specter that can define us that can define us only by fear. Rather, let us use change to remind us of the futility of grasping, that the changing of the seasons reminds us of the impermanence of a year, the waxing and the waning of the moon reminds us of the impermanence of the month, the rising and the setting of the sun reminds us of the impermanence of a day, as well as the swelling and the sinking of her chest reminds us of the impermanence of a breath. Om muni muni ma muni esawa om muni muni ma muni esawa om muni muni ma muni esawa om muni muni ma muni esawa. Let us not make ourselves cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs by striving to coerce ourselves to make the most of each precious meditation opportunity. Rather, how much easier can it be? How much more sustainable could it be to simply cultivate the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity? Om muni muni ma muni esawa om muni muni ma muni esawa om muni muni ma muni esawa om muni muni ma muni esawa. We come now to our second stepping stone, taking us to the mastery of awareness and letting go. During each inhalation, please silently and mentally recite sitting tall, reminding our body to generate a vertical traction between our tush and our head. During our exhalation, let us silently and mentally recite the three-syllable verb relaxing. Now, this is not a contrivance because during each exhalation, the parasympathetic nervous system, ensconced within the lower lumbar region of our spinal cord, as well as the tippy-top region, tippy-top cervical region, has evolved for both physical relaxation as well as mental release. we turn our attention now to the inner set of preliminary practices, and let us practice them in harmony with the final meditation manual of Dzogchen Rinpoche, a great Tibetan Buddhist yogi. Let us lovingly yearn to liberate all beings from the toxic tyranny of the survival instincts that, when run amok, can cause us to forever hate, crave, and cling. These are known metaphorically as the three mental poisons. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa. Wishing others well is a good start, but if we want to really help them, we've got to do more than wish. We've got to actually rely on the Buddha's example and the Buddha's instructions and the Buddha's students, which are known metaphorically as the three wish-fulfilling jewels. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa. One of the most efficient ways to completely squander our time and our energy and our relationships is to be a defensive dickhead. Not that anyone here has ever been defensive, but I know I have. So let us all enthusiastically use that exact same amount of energy and enthusiasm and apply it to actually learning from our mistakes. And let us not be like the fawns from Happy Days who could not say the word wrong. Or, I was wrong. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa. Death comes for us all. The wise prepare for death, that when it comes, it does not paralyze us with fear. We could imagine what it could be like if at the moment of death we have both the wherewithal and the circumstances that allow our real or imagined subtle energy to coalesce around our subtle mind at the level of our heart, causing it to shoot like an arrow up our central channel, out our crown, and into the part of the ultimate teacher, which is nothing less than the mastery of awareness and letting go. From that vantage point, we could gaze down upon the body and possessions we once cherished, and as a final act of benediction, sincerely wish that all beings everywhere benefit from our stuff. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa. Having again trained in love and letting go, as well as bliss and letting go, let us now rest in awareness and letting go. During our inhalation, let us silently and mentally recite, "Notice this." And during our exhalation, let us continue to silently and mentally recite, "Relaxing." We come to our third exercise of bliss and letting go, described in Sanskrit as Guru Yoga and in Tibetan as Lama Nal Shor. And of course, translated into English as union with the teacher or the teachings, depending upon your point of view. This painting of Padmasambhava melting blissfully into rainbow light, oopsie, reminds us of our own enlightened potential. The ultimate teacher at his heart reminds us literally of pleasant sensations, figuratively of both the teacher and the teachings. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa 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 Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. At last, we've come to the fourth step on our journey of mastering awareness and letting go. This time having trained in bliss and letting go, during our inhalation, let us kick back and simply watch the antics of mind as silently and mentally we recite the demonstrative pronoun this. Similarly, during our exhalation, let us relax into mind's non-graspable nature, as silently and mentally we recite the one-syllable verb, ease. Having climbed to the contemplative cruising altitude together as a team, let us meditate as transformatively as General Leia Organa upon Ajahn Claus under the guidance of Luke Skywalker. And now we enter the gateway of highest yoga tantra, as we bring the experience of the four bases of mindfulness into the conventional path of love and letting go, where it is love that is emphasized and it is jealousy that is leapt over. Now, it is not our job right now to actively visualize or believe or emote or try to become Gandalf the Grey, in work magic. All we got to do is play with words in harmony with our breathing. That's all it takes to strengthen the neural pathways responsible for love. Let us lovingly wish that each mind of each being now possessed, now mastered the enlightened wisdom of a real or imagined Buddha, symbolized by a one-syllable mantra, also known as a seed mantra, such as Hum. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa. Excuse me. Using speech or communication as a metaphor for each being's experience of the interpersonal, let us wish that each being's experience of the interpersonal be as loving as a Buddha's communication, symbolized by a multi-syllabic mantra. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa. Let us lovingly wish that each body or form of each being now possessed the perfect health that seems to be enjoyed by every archetype of enlightenment or yadam we see portrayed in Buddhist statuary. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa. Let us lovingly wish that each circumstance of each being, real or imagined, living or dead, now enjoy the safety and good fortune we see depicted in Buddhist paintings of a real or imagined paradise or pure land or vati. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa. Having trained in love and letting go, let us return to awareness and letting go. As promised, we are flipping and flopping between mantra meditation and silent meditation. Oops, one moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. Let us view letting go through a philosophical lens as we bring the illusion of the horizontal duality of us and them into the dance of impermanence and interdependence, known as Madhyamika's yoga of inconceivability, wherein we leapfrog over our pride. As we physically relax into the verbal recitation of this 12-syllable mantra, may we experience each circumstance of each being as being so impermanent that it could blissfully melt into a rainbow light that could interdependently absorb into our form. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa. As we physically relax into the verbal recitation of this 12-syllable mantra, may we experience each body of each being as being so impermanent that it could blissfully melt into a rainbow light that could interdependently absorb into our speech. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa. As we physically relax into the verbal recitation of this 12-syllable mantra, we could experience each being's communication as if it was so impermanent that it could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could interdependently absorb into our awareness. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa. As we physically relax into the verbal recitation of this 12-syllable mantra, we could experience each being's awareness as if it was so impermanent that it could blissfully melt into a rainbow light that could interdependently absorb into a vast empty void, such as the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could be tantalizing to the eye, is actually quite non-graspable to the hand. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa. Let us bring the 5 body regions into the path of bliss and letting go. As we physically relax into the verbal recitation of the mantra, whatever lower abdomen we might have perceived during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable, as real or imagined Amo-Ga Siddhi, comprised only of emerald light. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa. As we physically relax into the verbal recitation of the mantra, whatever navel we might have noticed during our previous inhalation can now begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable, as real or imagined, a Ratna Sambhava comprised only of gold light. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa. As we physically relax into the verbal recitation of this 12-syllable mantra, whatever chest we might have noticed during our previous inhalation can now begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable, as akshobhya, as real or imagined akshobhya comprised only of sapphire light. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa. As we physically relax into the verbal recitation of this 12-syllable mantra, whatever throat we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as Amitabha's syllable free, comprised only of ruby light. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa. As we physically relax, excuse me, as we physically relax into the verbal recitation of this 12-syllable mantra, whatever crown or scalp or top of our head we might have noticed during our previous inhalation can now begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable, as Varochana's real or imagined syllable Om, comprised only of white light. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa. Let us bring the 5 aggregates into the path of awareness and letting go. As we physically relax into the verbal recitation of this 12-syllable mantra, whatever physical experience we might have, whatever body we might have experienced during our previous inhalation can now begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as Vairochana of light. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. As we physically relax into the verbal recitation of this 12-syllable mantra, whatever experience of pleasure or pain we may have endured during our previous inhalation can now begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable, as real or imagined Ratnasambha comprised only of gold light. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. As we physically relax into the verbal recitation of our 12-syllable mantra, whatever appraisal of pleasure and pain as being strong or middling or weak that we experienced during our inhalation can now begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as real or imagined Amitabha, comprised only of ruby light. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. As we physically relax into the verbal recitation of this 12-syllable mantra, whatever knee-jerk responses we could experience in reaction to our perceptions of pleasure or pain, those impulses could now begin to feel, as if they were as non-graspable as real or imagined Amoghasiddhi, comprised only of emerald-colored light. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. As we physically relax into the verbal recitation of this 12-syllable mantra, whatever awareness we might have experienced during our previous inhalation can now begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as real or imagined Akshobhya, comprised only of sapphire light. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. Now let us rest in awareness and letting go. I should say, let us rest in spontaneous awareness and letting go. Let us bring the 5 thoughts into the path of awareness and letting go. As we relax into the verbal recitation, as we physically relax into the verbal recitation of this 12-syllable mantra, whatever emotions we might have experienced during our previous inhalation can now begin to feel less graspable. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. As we physically relax into the verbal recitation of this 12-syllable mantra, whatever intention we might have experienced during our previous inhalation could begin to feel less graspable. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. As we physically relax into the verbal recitation of this 12-syllable mantra, whatever thoughts we might have thought during our previous inhalation can now begin to feel far less graspable. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. As we physically relax into the verbal recitation of this 12-syllable mantra, whatever memories we might have experienced during our previous inhalation could feel less graspable. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. As we physically relax into the verbal recitation of this 12-syllable mantra, whatever imaginings we might have experienced during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. Let us transcend the illusion of samsara and nirvana's vertical duality by metaphorically inviting all the real or imagined Buddhas, their paradises, and their denizens to dwell in the 84,000 pores of our skin, thus practicing the body mandala of duality's awareness and non-duality's release. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. 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 At last, let us bring the spontaneous play of mind into the path of awareness and letting go. As we breathe in, let us silently and mentally recite relaxing into this. And in homage to the 1989 single Epic by Faith No More, what is this? What is this? This is whatever we notice during our exhalation. This is whatever we notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. This is whatever sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, or the like that we notice. This is whatever emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, or imaginings we notice. Whether that which we notice is external, internal, physical, mental, pleasurable, painful, interesting, boring, glorious, or grotesque. What do we do with that which we notice? Simple. You can guess it. You know it by now. We can physically relax into the verbal recitation of this 12-syllable mantra. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. 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 Remember, my friends, the foolish make things difficult, the wise make things easy. Or to quote Einstein, Any educated idiot can make things more complicated, more difficult, and more violent. However, it takes a lot of courage and a little bit of genius to move in the opposite direction. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa 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 This could be avarice. This could be aversion. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa 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 Let us seal this evening's practice with a love that wishes for universal enlightenment and well-being. Together. May all minds of all beings lucid yet void now be as wise as a Buddha's mind symbolized by Om unsearable vision. May all speech of all beings resounding yet void no be as loving as a Buddha's speech symbolized by a multi-syllable mantra. May all forms of all beings sensual yet void no be as healthy as a yidam depicted in Buddha's statuary. May all lots of all beings appearing yet void no be as fortunate as a pure land of lore depicted in Buddhist paintings. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10.5 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's early meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.